Hello, everybody. This is Debo with Debo's Movie Reviews here, and this week's review will be Dillinger, written and directed by John Milius, starring Warren Oates as John Dillinger, Michelle Phillips as Billy Frechette, Cloris Leachman featured as the Lady in Red, with Ben Johnson as Melvin Purvis, alongside Richard Dreyfuss as Babyface Nelson, Harry Dean Stanton as Homer Van Meter, and Steve Cannelly as Pretty Boy Floyd, alongside Frank McRae as Reed Youngblood, and Jeffrey Lewis as Harry Pierpont. I gotta say, an excellent take on a Depression-era outlaw, and not just the titular one the movie is about, but excellent portrayals of Purvis, Nelson, and Floyd. Although I'm going to say that's pretty much Steve Cannelly's pretty much breakout role and most well known besides movie wise, because I looked at his Internet Movie Database profile, and he's mostly known for shows and TV movies. But excellent job. Excellent job for Michelle Phillips as Billy Frechette. Excellent job for Ben Johnson as Purvis. Though, I might add, a somewhat inaccurate portrayal, because given how the real Purvis was in his early 30s when he brought down Dillinger and Floyd. And, of course, with Johnson being almost 60 when he played the titular detective G-Man. And last but not, and of course with Harry Dean Stanton as Homer Van Meter. But then again, any role Harry Dean Stanton did, he knocked it out of the park. It's practically the first thing I've ever saw him in, and I've been a fan of his ever since. And last but not least, Warren Oates as Dillinger. I mean, out of all the adaptations by John Dillinger, Warren Oates is pretty much the only actor ever hired to play Dillinger who actually looked like Dillinger. I mean, talk about perfect casting. I mean, forget Johnny Depp and forget Christian Bale's portrayal as Purvis. This is the best Dillinger story ever. I mean, excellent action, excellent story, and close to detail with historical accuracy, which is as far as Hollywood standards go, anyway. I mean, Oates just did an excellent portrayal and a bit quotable performance as Dillinger, where it's like beginning of the movie's robbing the bank, and the beginning of the movie he's got all like going, "This is gonna be the biggest moments of your lives. Don't make it your last." And then of course, one where he's meeting Billy Frechette, and he goes, "Wrong. I'm John Dillinger, not Douglas Fairbanks." I know that's a little inaccurate because he's meeting the girl and meeting Billy Frechette at the bar, and then she's all, "You look like Douglas Fairbanks," and he robs the bar and then gives the money back to the patrons, which pretty much made him of course, gave him a somewhat Robin Hood status. And of course with Phillips as Billy Frechette, I mean, talking about perfectly cast, and pretty much the best thing she did as an actress, because she's known more as a musician, as pretty much as of now the only surviving member of the Mamas and Papas still left. And of course with Johnson, I already mentioned him. And of course Richard Dreyfuss. I mean, he did a damn badass portrayal of Babyface Nelson. I mean, just stand out. He stood out, accurate portrayal and all. I mean, I mean, pretty much if you want to see Dreyfuss as a psycho, I recommend Dillinger because he kind of that was a show stealing performance right there. And then of course with Frank McRae as Youngblood, and it was pretty much freaker collaborator with Milius, who's along with I already mentioned in my Red Dawn review about being the first to die, and he was McRae was the teacher who died at the beginning of Red Dawn. But back to Dillinger, where he played Youngblood, who Dillinger who meets in prison and helps him escape in the infamous fake gun escape, which in the movie was carved out of soap, but in real life was made out of wood and painted. Talk about how badass John Dillinger, the real Dillinger, was to escape from jail with a fake gun. And to take the sheriff's car too, which in another scene where he's meeting the sheriff, which the sheriff was only mentioned, which another inaccuracy was the sheriff being mentioned as a male when in real life the sheriff was a woman named Lillian Halley. In the interview scene when the reporters before he gets hauled into a cell was supposed to be an anonymous woman in the movie, but yeah, I'll save that for the Public Enemies review. But overall, that's one the major inaccuracy. That, and you look closer to where it had like some of the National Guard guys at the Crown Point jail had M1 Garand's. I looked on the internet database, but I've seen this movie plenty of times to not question that one, but hey, it kind of reminds me to look closer next time and talk about one of the badass escapes of in a take on one of the badass escapes of a real criminal, and badass which equal to a badass of the cinema, where it was because in badassery in the movie is not only he steal a sheriff's car and take the mechanic and the warden hostage with help of Youngblood, but he stops at a movie version stops at a bank and robs it on the way out, and then meets halfway and with the warden and the mechanic going back to where they came from Youngblood joining the gang, and of course gotta mention some of the action scenes, like first bank robbery in the beginning, the second one when they got the gang, and then Dillinger just trips and plugs a full Tommy gun drum into a bank guard or before they get in a getaway vehicle, and the chase of that took out the getaway driver, and they had to get another vehicle. And then of course the one after escape, where it was a bank job and they got ambushed by the police and a bunch of local rednecks with their deer rifles, and they had a shootout, which was almost like the Depression era take on you could say it was Dillinger's Northfield in a way, but hey, I wouldn't say that one was as historically accurate, but or just movie stuff that made it or badass either way. With Nelson, where it was like because it wasn't accurate, because I don't recall Floyd ever running with Dillinger in the real Floyd, Pretty Boy Floyd anyway. It was played by Steve Connolly in this movie, But of course, we all know that Babyface Nelson and Dillinger are associated and known each other and were friends. Although movie version portrayed them as not getting along, to where Dillinger was calm and cool and Nelson was psychotic. I mean, he definitely was, because we'll see where under a bank job he shoots some nuns, which tainted the gang's Robin Hood status. And then, of course, the Little Bohemia shootout, which, of course, makes this 1973 free masterpiece outshadow Public Enemies in another form of where, I mean, talk about one of the most epic shootouts in cinema history. Of not only based on a real ambush, but but was about as badass, but badass just the same. Just where it was like with Babyface Nelson and Pretty Boy Floyd and Dillinger and company just teaming up, capping G-men left and right, and of course they go their separate ways for the last time. To where then of course Nelson leading them on a high-speed chase before he meets his doom. Harry Pierpont meeting his doom, and then Van Meter, ugh, just runs after hijacking his car and holding a driver hostage, and then stops in the middle of town and then gets ambushed by rednecks, and ooh, and this has got to be the most on record for the most use of the phrase "son of a bitch" throughout cinema history. I mean, and I give it to Cloris Leachman as Anna Sage, who, no, aka the woman in red, the woman who basically dropped a dime on Dillinger. Kind of like the only thing I've ever seen her in when she was young. Was always one of the things I heard her in was the Beavis and Butthead movie and Raising Hope, and a lot of other movies she did when she was old. And of course, with the Biograph Theater and Manhattan Melodrama, which was another key point of it, because being the last movie Dillinger ever saw as the real Dillinger supposedly died at a Biograph. I say supposedly because yeah, I'm just saying that for my conspiracy theory audience out there. So I know y'all out there, like, you can debate that in the comments. And of course, just a stellar 5 out of 5. I'll just give this movie. I mean, great action, great narration, where it was like with Purvis's monologues at the beginning, and another take on it, which mentioning other gangsters that died in the that were responsible for the Kansas City massacre, which was at Purvis had his own increased his trail on such gangsters, although a lot of the gangsters mentioned in the movie didn't take place in that. Only Pretty Boy Floyd supposedly took place in a Kansas City Frank Nash job, where alongside other gangsters that only had like bit deaths. And I gotta give it to a feature of, again, when Purvis arrests George Machine Gun Kelly. I mean, that gangster was a lot more, you could say, was more badass than the rapper turned musician. And then, of course, with coined the phrase G-Man. But overall, a definite 5 out of 5. I hope y'all liked the movie. Subscribe, enjoy, and I'll keep dishing them out.